how to get stronger using a program. So the ultimate goal that we're trying to facilitate here is physique change, right? The ultimate goal is progressive overload through mechanical tension, right? So very arbitrary words that literally mean nothing if you don't have something to base it off of. So let's break down mechanical tension, full stop, is just involuntarily slowing down in the movement. When does that happen? I want that to happen on the last set. They are defined as your working set or working sets. And the sets prior to that is like your warm-up sets, your feeder sets, and all your cluster sets if you're that kind of person that's strong enough to do so. And the progressive overload is every movement has a start and end. Every movement has a form in which we are practicing, and you need to sustain that form even when it's very light to even when it's very heavy. Okay, I think that's the one thing that you need to remember. Everyone needs to realize is that it's all fun and games to pick up a very heavy load, but if the form breaks down, you're just practicing how to do a different movement with different weights, right? So let's break that down into a micro perspective. Is okay. We need to facilitate this through sets and reps. So if you have an exercise, let's go with the leg press, right? So I'm going to do leg press. I'm like a 12-year-old when it comes to riding. So like if you can see it, good for you. If you can't, I'm so sorry. So leg press. My ultimate goal is, what did I do last week? So if I grab like my journal, if I grab my app, or my coach has prescribed an exercise for me, or I prescribe myself one, and I'm like, cool, I'm about to do a leg press. My first goal is, okay, like what is the A to B? So what is the start, what is the end? And what are the cues that I'm going to utilize to know that this movement is done properly and I'm training to failure on the movement rather than training to failure by changing the exercise once it gets heavy. So leg press for me, it's like, cool, I'm going to keep my heels on the sled the whole time, my butt staying down, and I'm holding onto the handles. And if the heels come off or my butt, tilts, my knees aren't driving forward anymore, then I'm no longer doing the movement, and that's me like training to failure, right? And so then that's the first thing you think of is form, execution, cueing. And then the second one is what did I do last week? As in, what was my last set's weight that I picked? So then that ultimate goal is, cool, last week I did 140. Okay, cool. Last week I did 140, but how many did I do it for? I did 140 for 8. Cool. So then the next question is, how many reps do you want to reach to or top range to until I want to add load? So every exercise, I would argue, has a top range where if you do more, I'm not saying that it adds fatigue or some type of like perception of effort. I would argue that some exercises you would rather train to failure because you want to train to failure rather than doing a 15 rep squat. You're probably going to be like, oh my God, like after 10 reps, you're like, I'm kind of done. Like this is difficult and this is hurting my brain and I'm not actually trained to failure. My legs, I've still got 5 more reps until I train, until I'm no longer able to do the movement, if that makes sense. So then with me, for a leg press, anything after 12 reps, I'm probably going to add load. Cool. So then last week I did 140 for 8. My goal now is to do 140 for, anything more than that, right? Ultimately, my goal is 140 for 12 or whatever, train to failure. That's your ultimate goal. But your goal right now is to just beat that. That could be like 9, that could be 140 for 9, that could be 140 for 10, doesn't matter, but the ultimate goal is to beat that, okay? And then when we reach more than 12, because the goal is failure, if you do 12 and you still got reps to go, keep going. Next week, you just have to add load, right? That's another nuanced conversation. Okay, so we've done the cueing, we've done the execution, done the exercise. We know all these things, and we know what weight we did the week prior. Now it's time to work up to this. And this is what I see wrong all the time, is that like cool, I'll just start there. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like you need to actually warm up. You need your nervous system to be aroused. You need your body to be warmed up to do the movement. And that's relevant too, right? Like if the exercise order is a leg press is the first thing you did, you probably need to warm up like a lot to get there. If the leg press is like the third thing you did and it's a leg day, then you probably have warm hamstrings, probably have warm hips, your quads are probably already on, so you probably don't need to start as light. But let's just go with this, that it's your first exercise, and 140 for 8 is the foundation of where you want to go past. So now we have to work towards that. So I would start with maybe, let's just go with 40. And I would do that for like a number of 10 to 12 reps. Let's go with 10, just because I'm lazy. I don't want to do more than 10 because I just know I'm probably just going through the motions. Okay, cool. So then I do that for 10. That effort is probably like a 5 out of 10, right? Like ultimately, if I've done 140 for 8 and I train to failure, 40 for 10 is like nothing. But that doesn't mean that I don't do it. That process is for you to go, cool, like I'm just warming up my body, I'm warming up my nervous system, I'm pumping blood to the right places. I rest like 90 seconds, and then maybe I'm gonna do 80. None of you can see this, so it's okay, but it's just easy for me to explain. I'm gonna do 80 for 8. Cool, so you can see now I've doubled the weight. So therefore, should the challenge be doubled? No. Ultimately, that challenge is now probably a 7 out of 10, and I've descended the reps. So if I did, it doesn't matter, you can do 8, you can do 10, but I would rather descend the reps because now my goal is to warm up the body and mitigate fatigue so I can work up to that working set, that last set, the one you're trying to progress past. I'm trying to progress past that. And if I do 15 reps in my first set and 12 reps in my second set, like how much fatigue are you adding for you to then not be able to beat what you did last week? So that's really important. Cool. So I did 40 for 10, 80 for 8. Let's go with 140 for whatever, right? So now it's time to do 144 question mark. I say that because your goal is to beat that. Do you do that? Do you not? I'm not sure. You just do the thing. If you don't do it, you do less or you do more, that's fine. You just do it again next week. Your goal is to beat that. That doesn't mean, and with the right form, right? So it's important to recognize that this doesn't happen every week. This doesn't happen every 2 weeks. Relevant towards the program, your first 4 weeks, if you're not progressing every week, I would look at that and like go, okay, cool. Is your form like not good enough that you're recruiting the wrong muscles and therefore it's more difficult than it should be? Or is the load too heavy in general? Or is that sets from 40, 80, 140, is that too much for you? Should you be doing 40, 80, 120, 140? Your coach, you, whatever they say is important, but the end goal is 2 things: train to failure or proximity to with the right form, and progress what you did the week prior or 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. They're your goals. How you get there is your process. So leg press is a really easy example because it's a lumbar supported exercise. So your perception of effort, that like thought in your head, oh my God, is this difficult or not difficult, is going to be quite low, right? Because ultimately, if you can't do it and you train to failure and the sled comes towards you, it's not going to like hurt you. In contrast to potentially like a barbell squat where you're like that perception of effort is so difficult, that like so high that like you got to inhibit force. You got to pick up the load and go, okay, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And like that would be a variable in which you go, cool, the only reason I'm not progressing is probably because this is a very hard and high perception of effort movement, and that's a variable of why I can't progress. And a leg press, I would want you to feel more comfortable in training failure on that movement, because worst comes to worst, the sled comes towards you and you're like, oh, I'm stuck behind the sled. And then you just get out, take the weights off, and then push the sled back. I digress. Point being is that your goal is that the first set feels like a 5, your second set feels like a 7, and your third set, if the third set's your working set, feels like a 9 out of 10. But remembering though, if you need another set or a warm-up set, a feeder set, a cluster set, that those sets prior to the working set doesn't mitigate you from progressing from the week prior, the week prior, the week prior. So the first set's a 5, second set's a 7, third set could be another 7, and then the working set is where you train to failure. So that's